Coverage continues of this PDGA Major. It's the 2022 Selinske U.S. Masters Disc Golf Championships from Quad Cities. I'm Grant Zellner, and it's the back nine of round 2 in the MP40 division, coming to you from Camden 2, the heavily wooded course here in the Quad Cities area. Lots of creatures enjoying disc golf today, especially one named Dutch Napier, on fire, 6 down through the front 9. Alan Wagner, Brad Schick, and Joe Rovere, all part of our foursome today. Heading to the back 9 and hole number 10, a par 3 at 305 feet. This hole plays substantially downhill and over one of 2 prominent ravines here on the property. The basket placed about halfway up the other side, very, very steep, allowing players to play their tee shots directly into the hillside. We're going to see some ace runs here in our coverage, if not today, surely by the time the week is out. Brad Schick with the box, going to the forehand. And although that disc looked to be a little bit offline, you can see it finishing up inside the circle. Now Andrew Brown, the soft backhand, just needs this disc to finish. And it does very softly. That will be a pretty awkward putt, though. His feet will be at about the level of the top of the basket. Reigning world champion Joe Rovere now. And what did I tell you? Ace run off the basket, and now the unfortunate roll away. He'll be no further than about circle's edge, but that will be a putt that feels like about 50 feet from way down the hillside. This is Alan Wagner, your leader, or at least your leader on this card, into the shadow of the basket. Joe Rovere now establishing that he is at circle's edge, just a little bit off. Allen in for the drop-in birdie to start his back 9. He is in a battle with Dutch Napier to retain the top spot in the tournament. Andrew Brown and Brad Schick both in for the birdies, so pretty good start for the card here on the back 9. On to the 11th now, the shortest hole on the property, just 183 feet. Obviously a par 3. Pretty narrow passageway here at the 11th. Believe it or not, this is not the easiest of the 18 holes, but it's near the top, as you might expect. Players feeling like this is a must-get. Little forehand, and not a bad play here because of that right there. You can be offline. You'll go a little ways into the rough, but you should have pretty decent stance for an inside the circle putt. Now that you don't want to do. Forehand or backhand, catching an early tree takes birdie just about out of the equation. B+ effort. Still good enough for a inside the circle look at birdie there. And now Joe Rovere doesn't like it, but shouldn't be too far off for that birdie look. A little soft up there from Andrew. Should be able to save par. Now Joe, you can see, hated the tee shot, but not too bad a look here. Frustrated with that one. Brad Schick now. Oh, no. Way off with that putt. And that's just a combination of being a little bit off and getting a little bad luck all at the same time. Wagner barely squeaking that birdie putt in over the edge of the basket. So our lead card here making the 11th look pretty challenging, really. Overall, though, the field played this hole at more than a third of a stroke below par. This foursome happy to move along to the 12th.
Oh, Macbeth, what a shot inbounds. That is a smash.
It just seems like he's willing his way to the top. Your 2022 PDGA World Champion, Paul Macbeth.
And here we are at the 12th, a par 3 at 440 feet, a very challenging par 3 at that, playing over the ravine. This the most common landing zone right about here, leaving 150 feet to the pin. There is some space off to the left, though, that has something of an alleyway up the hill as well. If you can get to this stump right there that we just flew by, you actually have a pretty decent jump putt that you can run with a lot of authority because of the backstop behind the basket. I've seen a lot of very lengthy second shots go off of the basket, but not a lot of birdies, as you might expect. Allen hoping this one gets lucky, and indeed he does. Actually ended up in the ideal landing zone. Now Brad Schick. That disc didn't stand up for him very well. He'll have fairly lengthy and obstructed second shot here. Joe walking away from that tee shot quickly, but is actually pretty well positioned. And Andrew, this is a pretty common shot shape there. Didn't quite have the line though, so Andrew with the most lengthy second shot here, very steep uphill. Camera does not do this hillside justice. And that's nicely done. Fortunate little bounce there for Brad, though he probably would have been inside the circle regardless. Allen, no stress there. And now Joe. Pretty good positioning there for Joe. Almost to the range you could jump putt that. Joe squeaks that one in, but there aren't any notes on the scorecard. Little par frame there for everybody here at the 12th. Not a bad place to do it. 0 birdies given up by the 12th to the field on this second day of the championship. And we move on to the 13th. Checking notes now to see this may be the easiest. Check that. It's the second easiest hole relative to par on the property. Par 4 at 640 feet, steeply downhill and very open all the way to about this point right here when we go right back into the woods for good. Basket pretty precariously positioned there on top of this little mound. These MP40 players, though, have the power. If they can get the shot shape right, they can get to the base of that mound. And we're going to see, I'll bet, several of this grouping try, including this shot right here from Allen. Finishes out a little bit early, ends up there next to the tee pad for the next hole, but that's okay. Brad, same shape, different motion, going to the forehand. That's going to dig, though, and it does. Now Joe, a little wider. That disc just never really flattened enough to glide, so Joe will be playing an up from there. Finally, Andrew Brown going back to the forehand, so once again, good shape. This is going to dig, needs to stay out, though. Obviously, that's pretty tight there, but he still might have a decent line. No, it doesn't look like it. Wow, and nothing but a pitch out there. So playing for par. Meanwhile, Brad, pretty open upshot here. Would like this to be a stress-free putt, just given the basket's position. Andrew with his third. Okay, so that'll be a bogey for Andrew. Good use of the ground there for Joe, and now Allen. Maybe tried to do a little bit too much there. So now Allen, this is a lower percentage birdie bid. And you can see there the eyes revealing a bit of a rollaway here. So now coming back. Frustrated at the par, but that was a very, very good putt to keep Allen neck and neck with Dutch Napier on a different card. He's lighting the course up right now. Meanwhile, Brad cards the birdie. And Andrew in with the par, meaning I misspoke earlier. Counted on my fingers incorrectly. That's 4. That's a par here at the 13th. And we move on now to a par 3, the 14th, 269 feet, steeply uphill. Was told this was, I think, maybe a relatively new hole here on the property. You can see how raw it is, and the basket blind to the tee pad because it's up, over, and then up just a little more. A little bit of a drifting finish there for Brad, but he's probably pretty happy with that effort. Joe, this looks great from his perspective. And indeed it is. A little too much turn there for Allen. Here's Andrew Brown. Similar shot to Allen's there for Andrew. So the two of them will be playing first. This is Allen. Pretty straightforward here. Just needs it to settle flat. Maybe a little trickier here for Andrew. Nah, no problem. Brad Schick for birdie. Good uphill putt. You can see by the way he's walking how steep that putt really was. Now Joe, this for a birdie. No problem.
He's way out of position. Like,
he's gonna have to force it though.
I don't think he can.
Think it's even possible?
It's in the impossible range.
The way Worlds ended last year, you couldn't have wrote that in a book.
After the initial reaction, I had to process.
If you don't even think it's a sport, watching this moment has to get you pumped up.
He's going to need the shot of the century.
I could sense something was about to happen.
On to the 15th now. A favorite hole here at Camden 2. Par 3, 305 feet, playing downhill and sort of a side hill orientation to this fairway. In my opinion, this is a hole that you can be tempted to do a little too much on in terms of fine-tuning a shot shape. If you can just get down with the right weight and can avoid enough of the trees, you'll be rewarded with a decent look here.
I need help. A lot of help.
That one, though, knifing over toward the out of bounds, which is a danger here, and that shot does find it. One of the only places on the property where out of bounds comes into play. It's all the way down the left-hand side. That is the one thing you do have to avoid here. This shot, if it gets a little skip, and it looks like it did, but it caught a late tree. Without that late tree, that would have been circle's edge at worst. Allen a little wide. Not saying it's an easy shot, just saying you get the weight right and get it through the gap, you don't have to worry too terribly much about the finish. And nobody in this foursome close. Yesterday, I think it was in the FP40 division, 3 of the 4 in the shadow of the basket.
Great shot, Alan.
Allen catches a lot on the way down the hill, but all in all, not too bad an effort for where he was. Nice little upshot there.
Something like that. Not much else I can do.
Joe Rovere, a little bit too far away to give that putt a really good run. That's a great putt there for Allen. Also a solid putt for Andrew. So all these guys hoping tomorrow they can get pin high, because if you are, probably have a pretty makeable putt.
Two OBs on the course, and I found them both.
Well, thanks, Brad, for doing my job there. Down below the 15th basket is the 16th tee, playing very near the level of the bottom of the ravine. We go across the creek and across a second creek. This is where the ravines converge into one. Then we go very, very steeply uphill, 280 feet total from tee to basket, but in elevation alone, this is like throwing onto the roof of a 3 or perhaps even 4-story building, probably the steepest green on the course. Joe playing it hard into the hillside, probably about circle's edge, but that'll be a challenging putt. Alan, that is perfect. Andrew catching that tree with the sort of diagonally curved tree trunk. If that tree weren't there, this hole gets substantially easier. That whole tree does a lot of the guardian work here up that right side of the fairway. So now Andrew playing first from down at the base of the ravine. Deft little touch there. Brad, that was from about 40 feet. Now Joe, from the other angle, looked like that putt would be a lot more substantial. Not to say it was easy, but it was shorter than I thought. A couple of other drop-ins there. Couple of birdies, couple of pars. Onto the penultimate hole here at Camden 2, a par 3 at 360 feet, playing sort of up on the flat between the two ravines here. Doesn't mean the hole is flat, it just is flat by comparison. Pretty logical shape to this hole, just a little bit of a bend back to the left. Joe Revere first to throw, gets a little bit of a turn on that, so needs it to finish, and it won't. It's well down the hill in the rough. Allen keeps that disc from turning over on him, and look at the reward. Right by the basket to the back edge of the 10-meter circle. Andrew, a little bit of turn like Joe's, but that disc was coming back, so favorable kick back to the left. Now Brad, a little bit lower than his card mates. Pretty well judged. Needs it to sit, though. No problem. Joe will have a drop in for par. Andrew, big putt there. Big putt for the birdie. We're going to run that back. The first run back here on the back nine. Solid circle 2 effort there for Andrew Brown. Alan Wagner off the number plate here at 17. That'll be a frustrating par. And Brad Schick in for the birdie. So what once looked like a trend towards separation, now 3 of our foursome pretty tight here at the top. And we know at least one, if not several, members of the chase card having pretty hot rounds themselves. So we will move on to a pressure-packed 18th hole here at Camden 2. And here we are at the 18th, par 3 at just 280 feet. A hole that played about a quarter stroke under par for the MP40 field. You can see a couple of options here. You can go straight at the pin, or you can try to swing something around from the left. Either way, that creek off to the left, it is not out of bounds, but it is probably one of the most challenging places on the course to have to go down and take a stance. Andrew at this point just hoping this disc doesn't roll out, and it doesn't. It stays put right there in the flat. Brad over the creek. Needs this to just sit right there, and it does. Well done. Here's Joe Rovere now off the tee. Not the line he wanted, but that disc settles before going down into the creek. That'll actually be possibly a pretty good uphill putt. Now Allen inches from a perfect line. That's short. So Allen with the awkward stance playing first. Pretty solid little up there. Andrew Brown for birdie. Gets that disc to settle. Okay. Now Joe, little jumper up the hill. Not a bad effort. Brad, the chance at the lone birdie to close out round 2. Baskets for Brad Schick. Well done there.
You guys free that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Almost.
I'm sorry.
You're good.
I'm giving that to you. I thought you were touching the pole.
It's fine. I'm pretty much was. It's fine. You too.
And we are now halfway through the 2022 Tim Selinski's United States Masters Disc Golf Championship. Look at the overall leaderboard. Dutch Napier. Pretty hot round there. We'll be back with continuing coverage of the MP40 and FP40 divisions here at the 2022 Tim Selinske U.S. Masters Championships. So keep it tuned right here to the PDGA on YouTube. Thanks for watching.